Welcome to the Digital Forester Podcast, where we talk to foresters about how they are using digital technologies in their day-to-day forestry work. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Forester Podcast. Today, I'm joined by Jens from HD LogSystems, and I'm going to ask Jens to fill in the blanks on the rest of his name, because no matter how much I tried, I don't think I'll ever get close. So Jens, my friend, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Kevin. I will. My name is Jens Fuglsang Røge, or as an English person will say, it's like Roji. So I'll be fine with that. Also, both by you and other English speaking people as well. So
awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to meet you. You and I have not met before. And whereabouts? I'm calling from Ottawa, Canada, but whereabouts are we reaching you today?
I'm actually sitting in the middle of Denmark, or in the darkest part of Denmark, as some people say. We have our main office in Viborg, which is one of the oldest cities in Denmark. So in the middle of the country.
Very cool.
So over here right now it's evening, so a little bit late working hours.
Yes, for sure. I appreciate you joining me on this staying late. So I always like to ask folks who join the podcast to maybe describe their background. I looked at your profile at LinkedIn. At one point I think I saw you were even doing some gaming or game things. And so I'm really curious to know how you got into where you are, because I believe you're the business manager now. LogSystems, but a broad career that, as far as I can tell, didn't start in forestry, but maybe share with our listeners your journey to how you got started and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I definitely will. Yeah, it actually has been quite diverse, you can say. I'm started actually as a carpenter. So that was actually my profession for some years. And after that, I joined the military and decided on carpentering wasn't really the future for me. So I took a little bit more school and got into the university for forestry in Denmark. So 4 years of training to be a forester in Denmark, and that's like a profession bachelor degree in Denmark. One of the years in Sweden learning about a little bit bigger forestry than we have it in Denmark. After that, I have worked 3 years as a wood purchaser, basically in Denmark, but also in Sweden and the northern part of Germany, mostly for export of logs to China as the main area, but for the whole of Asia. So it's it has actually been a quite long travel, and I do think that what got me into forestry was basically just managing nature at some point. And yeah, I ended up in a little bit more commercial part of forestry, you can say, with the trading. A lot of my fellow students ended up a little bit more in production, or in like managing of nature, even the open part of nature. But forestry really got it to me, and the commercial part definitely did. So
very cool. So would you say that was part of the plan, or
yeah, no, not at all. But sometimes that's just how life goes on, I guess. So yeah, so got some great possibilities during the way, and yeah, just said yes, this sounds like a good idea, let's do this.
Yeah, so, well, with a carpentry background, I'm going to assume you have fantastic woodwork items in your home, or maybe you just completely left that behind, but I suspect it's still a bit of that.
Yeah, definitely still have that. But I think it's like probably like a profession disease or something, whatever you would call it. Like, this is like going back. I started building with the final product from forestry, and now I'm heading back to how to really make the final product there. So I think it's my own little travel in wood industry in that way. So
yeah, for sure.
Quite interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So maybe introduce us to your company. I know you've been traveling a lot, and we'll talk about that, and maybe why you've been traveling a lot. But maybe introduce us to your company, because I know, looking at the background of the company, it's related to a much larger set of organizations with several hundreds of employees. But maybe give us an overview of who your company is and the relationships and some of that work, how you fit into that large organization and that green economy
Yeah, the company is actually quite old. It's called HedeDanmark, and that's our operating company. We actually owned by it's called a commercial foundation. So it's called HedeSelskabet. So they have like a different way, or at least a different set of rules for the company. At least what the idea of the company is, and then the operating company HedeDanmark is where we make the money for the foundation to exist. So the company was actually established for more than 150 years ago by a guy called Enrico Dalgas, a Spanish guy traveling to Denmark, and actually taking a lot of unfertile land in the western part of Denmark and cultivating it and making it productive, even if it was like turning more land into farming or even forestry instead. So that's like our main owner, or at least HedeSelskabet is our owner of the foundation, and then our operating company HedeDanmark is where our business is located, and that's really where we get those letters as well. The HD, that is HedeDanmark, that part of it. So in our forestry division, we have like several different business units. HD seed, they of course find seeds for different species around Europe and to plant in Denmark or in Germany. We have like HD silver, and they trade all logs and in Denmark and in Sweden and Germany, and also for Asia now. So they actually bought a smaller Danish company and put that into the group as well to have a better stand in that, and also like trading like investment part of forestry in the Baltics. We also have a part of the division is investment for bigger investors to make quite huge amounts of investments in the Baltic forestry, and then we of course take care of the land and make sure they have a profit on the beside all the value profit they get from that. So there's a lot of different units, and one of these units is of course also our part with the HD LogSystems. So and that part has not in this form, but it has existed for at least the last 20 years, I think. So it's actually quite interesting, that part.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad I didn't make a bet with you on what HD stood for, because I would have said high definition, and clearly I would not have been anywhere close whatsoever to.
It could have been.
It could have been. I know. It could actually be quite perfect there. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
I think that's a new way for us to market it, definitely.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe walk me through the journey, because I know in 2000 there was a gentleman that I believe saw something in passing in a completely different space and had this idea to say, hey, I'm going to try and do this. And then that created, I believe, your first product that won several awards, innovation awards, has been in use all sorts of places. But maybe start us off with that story, and then
I will.
The latest and coolest.
I definitely will, because stuff like that just come up the weirdest way. It was like my colleague Lars, he has been working in the company for more than 25 years, actually started as a forest worker, planting and harvesting, stuff like that, like manual job. And he started working with measuring stacks of raw wood in the forest. And in 1999, we had a big storm in Europe, and there were a lot of wood to measure. So he was probably walking around doing that and thinking there might be an easier way of doing this. This takes too long time. And he read an article in a Danish newspaper about sequencing white and red blood cells with photogrammetry, you can say. So just by the shape and the color, a computer could tell if it was a red or white blood cell. And he thought it should be possible to use this on logs as well. So they actually started into some development and testing and see if this even possible. And they come up with a solution where a computer program could actually see what was logs, what was the end surface of a log in a stack of wood, how big it was and stuff like that, from technology used in the medical industry. So that was basically where it all started. At that point, they took pictures with digital cameras and took the SD card and sent it in by mail to like someone who had a big enough computer to manage this. That of course evolved quite fast when we got better smartphones and stuff like that. That you could take the pictures from the smartphone instead. And of course, someone should sit there and put on the polygon of the stack and stuff like that. But at least they got started on the development that ends us up where we are today.
Yeah.
So
I believe that
that's
product,
like
LogStackPRO, I think is the first one.
Yeah, actually not. I actually don't know the name of the first one we had. It's now 24 years ago or something like that. It started, but the system that really gave the big breakthrough in this area was that LogStackPRO. That was built on a bigger tablet with a stereo camera on it. So the stereo camera is used to put on the size reference of the picture you basically are taking. Basically, we are taking a video of the surface of a stack, and the system is stitching all the images together to like a big panoramic image. And use of the stereo camera technology, where we know the distance between the cameras, we can actually put a perfect size reference on that picture. And then using all the technology on work they have done on the machine learning of finding the logs, that part is done automatically. So the system just needs to take a big panoramic picture. We know the size reference on it, and the augmented reality puts on all the log surface on this picture, and then we know exactly the volume. So that was basically the big breakthrough of the LogStackPRO.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. And when the company and Lars and other folks were doing this is pretty novel technology. It's like pulling photogrammetry, some machine learning, new tablet, stereo cameras. How was the response from the Danish forestry industry and maybe even the EU forestry industry? Was it a walk in the park? It was easy. People said, "Oh, this is fantastic," or was there some proof that the team had to do to showcase that this really worked and was a viable solution?
Yeah, you're hitting a soft point there, because like, I wouldn't call forestry like we're not like not cooperating, but we are probably a little bit conservative on new technology in forestry. So I don't think that all the people they told about it in the beginning, they were having their arms above their head cheering. I think it took a lot of they really have to like convince all the new users that this was actually a good system. What they did was actually it takes a little bit of a background story. When you have to trade logs in Germany, you have to actually measure all the logs with a certified system. There were only one other system at the market doing certified measurement with photogrammetry. So they actually got the LogStackPRO certified. At that point, no one could say that it's not measuring right, because it was certified by the meteorological office in Germany. So people do start to get convinced that this is actually working quite all right. So that was a big step of learning people that this technology works, it's faster, all the documentation is better for you. It's better for you, it's better for the purchaser of the wood. So it takes quite some time to learn people that this technology is usable in forestry. So
for sure, that was a very diplomatically correct way of describing the
Thank
forest
you.
industry. Very well done. And so maybe for some of our listeners that may not be as familiar with forestry, I know on the website there's this great video showing LogStackPRO compared to how it used to be done.
Yeah.
And literally, like within a couple seconds, right, the person operating the LogStackPRO was already like on a neck deck and like just moving forward. But maybe for folks who don't come from a forestry background, can you describe the old process of measurement, and I suspect it's very manual with actual measures, and then we'll go from there, because I know you use that term metrology, which is very unique. But maybe start off with, how was it done before, and given your story with Lars, I'm curious to, well, I'll get to that. I'm curious to know what he's doing now, but maybe for our listeners, for context, what was the old school way of doing it?
Yeah, you can call it the old school, but it's actually still applied in a lot of places in the world. But basically, if you have a log stack, that we would say in Europe, or a deck of logs, as you probably call it in the US, you would divide it into sequences, or what can you say? If it's like 10, if you have a log deck that's 10 meters long, you would probably divide it into segments of 2 meters. And each of these segments, you will like you will mark it with a spray, and you would estimate the height of this segment. So you will like do an optical estimation of this block. This is 2 meters and 25 centimeters high, and you will measure each of these blocks. Of course, the stack is not square, so you have to like imagine, if I would make this part square, this is how high it is in this section. So you would measure all sections of a stack on front side and on the back side. And then in Denmark, that's probably the easiest example to tell. We are using like a Swedish conversion method, where we, of course, when we measure it like that, we get the gross volume. We want to get the net volume of how many cubic meters of logs we have in that deck. So we have a conversion system where we decide on, depending on the species and the length of the species and the diameter of the species. So we basically measure each diameter. We measure 100 diameters in a stack, and we get an average diameter. And that gives the system some points. So we could, for Norway spruce, you will like start up at 71. That's like 0.71%. And then depending on the length and how the stacking is done, and how much debris there will be in the stack, you'll get different point plus or minus. And then you'll end up at some point like 0.69. So 69% of the gross volume of that stack is wood, and that's how it's traded. And I would say the vast majority of volume in Denmark are still traded like this. I think the vast majority in Europe are still traded like this. Of course, bigger countries like Sweden, where we learned the rules, they have actually converted to a system where they measure on lorries most of the volume at the mill. We are not really there yet, because the Danish forestry industry is really not as big as the Swedish. We're like 1% of the size maybe, so there's really no reason to evolve in that way. So that was also why the system got made for the Danish. So it is a very manual way of doing it, and of course it takes a lot of time, and there's a big risk of making mistakes. And the biggest risk really of the mistakes is like everyone, when you have done it for a lot of years, you will of course use the conversion factor, but you are basically biased. You see a stack, you see a deck, and you know where you're going to land it. I know this one will be 0.69, and you don't even have to argue. You just land it there because you just know, and these guys are very good. They have done it for many years. The difference from that to our system is like objective. It just measures what it sees. You have to see, is what I'm seeing on the picture, is that right? Good. This is the percentage of log instead. So that it's a big difference, you can say, but the results will, in basic terms, be the same. So
yeah. Well, thanks for providing that description. As you were, telling that story, I was even getting tired without even thinking about doing the work. All the manual measurements, the accidental decimal in the wrong spot, and what
exactly
could go wrong. But it also made me laugh because the foresters have subject matter expertise, and sometimes as we're bringing new technology, it's Jens, it doesn't matter. I know. It's like, I've been doing this forever, and
Yeah, and they
right, like
have.
your stuff isn't that good. It can't be me, right?
No,
We've heard it all
exactly.
before. So
Yeah.
yeah, so very cool. And so with LogStackPRO, it's been available for a while, and I think
Yeah.
you've hinted, it's been used in Denmark. Where else has it been used? And was there a domino effect that once you started getting a bit of traction, that certification in Germany, then it was smooth sailings after that?
Yeah, we have our main market in, actually not in Denmark, but in Germany, where the certification rules are provided. So that was really our entry to selling the system in other places, that in our own company, you can say, or using it in other companies. The production of units ourselves, and buying in the cameras, and having like a 3D model for putting in the cameras and all that work, takes a lot of time. So a couple of years ago, our developer, he was saying, like, Apple is using they have like this new LiDAR stuff in their camera equipment. We should make a new system basically on the same, but using the LiDAR scanner in the Apple for establishing the size reference for this. And it took probably some convincing, but when they finally decided to do this, we developed a system. Basically it's the same. The technology behind all the machine learning is the same, but instead of we have to produce system ourselves, which take a lot of time and had a lot of lead time on delivering it, we now have the same system for Apple's Pro devices. So the last 3 generations of Apple Pro device, you have the built-in LiDAR sensor, and it does the same job. It actually is better than the old system because the resolution on the camera is even better, and it's the microchip they put in these new system. It's just insane. They are so fast.
Yeah.
So that's actually where we are with the development right now. That's our newest product we just put on market a couple of months ago.
Yeah, so that's the LogStack LiDAR. So this
Exactly.
So before we jump there, I'm just curious. So you said this developer came up and said, the iPad Pros have the LiDAR system in it. The previous version, like, how big is the development team? Like is it hundreds of developers who made LogStackPRO?
No. It's a very small team. Basically, of course, the group was bigger when a lot of work was doing because we hired in some people to do it. But it was basically Lars, my colleague, and then our vision guy doing that, all this cool stuff that we have no idea about.
Yeah.
It was them working on this. And of course, the group was bigger because it was like a big investment for the company. But all that faded out to us being only us back again, just selling the system. So
Yeah.
I guess at that point there were like 4 or 5 guys working on this.
Yeah.
And of course a lot of testing, and we had a lot of we call it machine learning, but basically we have had like people looking at all the images, placing the circles a little bit better. The system gave a guess. We placed the circles a little bit better, and all this learning how to put these circles on each log surface is what makes the system unique, really. So it has taken a lot of hours learning the system, how to place these circles exact.
Right.
That development will often be forgotten because it's behind all the other things.
Yes.
But it's an important part of the whole development of the system.
Yeah, so it almost sounds like the software side, you need it, but maybe what I'm hearing is that reinforced learning with your machine learning, feeding it back, corrections is where there's a lot of secret sauce or magic.
Exactly, that's really where the magic is happening.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. So going from to the LiDAR, I'm dying to know, Lars was the original guy, the photo, the stereo side. Was this yeah, let's do it, or was there even maybe a bit of time goes by and did Lars become the guy going, well, why do we need to do it? And I'm just curious, how did he react to the proposal from this developer?
Yeah, but basically, they just got the new system, LogStackPRO. It was like top of the line. We were the only one in Europe having a tablet certified by the German Meteorological Office. That was a big step, even that. So when the developer said, I think we should just forget about all that and we'll make a new one for iPad. They were like, probably not a good idea because now we just invested a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think it was a big step for them. This was all before I started in the company. So it was a big step for them deciding, okay, we'll do it. But when they finished it, they were like, why did we even want to make the LogStackPRO? This is so much better.
Yeah.
Because the possibility of using the system worldwide is much bigger than a system where we have to build it ourselves. Of course, this would never have happened without making the LogStackPRO. That was for certain. We couldn't have gotten to the LogStackLIDAR without the LogStackPRO.
Yeah.
But still, yeah.
Yeah. Well, it definitely sounds like, that whole machine learning model, LogStackPRO contributor, evolved it to a point that made the next evolution that much more easier. So maybe talk us through the LogStack LiDAR, because I'm sure a lot of our listeners are saying, like let's get to the meat. It's like anyone who says LiDAR gets all excited, and then
of course
everyone's pumped about that. So you mentioned it runs on an iPad Pro. They have the LiDAR sensor. I have one just to my left right now. I downloaded software myself. Looks like beautiful software. I haven't run the demo yet. I'm gonna go do that later today with the kids and have some fun with them. But it's sounding like it's taking the LogStackPRO and leveraging the laser for measurements and automating things. Is that a fair statement that the step change is there?
Well, I think actually Lars thought it was quite interesting, even though they just spent like 2 years developing the other system. Because of course, guys working with this, I think all development is fun. So it probably took some degree of persuading the boss to say, okay, we'll probably do this. This is a quite big investment. So they did, and the developer said that this could be done. So they did change the system, or they at least made a new system. We're still working on the old one because that's the one that's certified in Germany. So yeah, I think Lars was actually quite happy, even though it was a big step jumping to a new platform.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I played around with the tech myself. It's super cool. So with that stack or the deck and potatoes, depending where you are in the world. Yeah. So really we're pulling out, we're counting the logs, we're getting the diameters of the logs. What else are we getting? Is it doing some species, or is that coded in?
Species we're not working with. It doesn't really have the information to do it. It will take a lot of work to machine learn species. It's not really relevant for us because in Denmark we put one species in one stack. We normally don't mix it, but even if we do, the user have the possibility to say, okay, it's 50% this and 50% this. So that's some of the tapping in. You have to do it through the form of the system. Yeah. So it basically measures. It puts on each circle on the picture that you see. So each surface of a log, it puts on a picture on a circle, and all these circles are combined with a polygon. We have made like a system to how to draw the polygon. So you can't even change the polygon yourself. It's the system telling you, here is the polygon, this is where it's placed. So we have made like our own algorithm to put on that. So none of this is interfered by people.
Yeah.
The biggest advantage, because there is a lot of other systems on the market, also basically most of them are based on taking one picture, moving 5 meters, taking another pictures, and you're making a big panoramic photo that way. But then you need to put in a size reference. So you have to put in one stock that's 1 meter long, or you have to mark 2 points on the stack and measure this is 14 meters. Of course, there's a way for people to make mistakes or even decide to cheat if they want to. With this system, you don't have any influence on the size. You just measure the stack. Everything you're doing is being put on the picture. So all logs that you add, if you add extras because one were missing due to the technology in finding it, you can see everything that has been added. So you basically can't cheat with this.
Yeah.
So that is the biggest advantage of using LiDAR technology for setting the size reference of these pictures.
Yeah, so by the sounds of it, Jens, really the LiDAR, as you mentioned, is a size reference. It's less about recreating a three-dimensional representation of the stack or deck, as opposed to making sure that your delineation of the circles are better, the measurements are more precise. And I think also from the website, what I thought was unique is you're going both ways in the deck, and you can somehow correlate the front and the back together to ensure that the integrity. Is that right?
Well, as you said, you can measure the front and the back side of the stack, and for the LogStackPRO, that's really the big advantage of it, because it is the only system in the German market, at least, that's certified that you can actually carry to the backside. The other system is placed on a car, so it actually is the only system that certified can measure the backside of the stack. And it's really an important part of the development of this, because we know because we've made a lot of tests on this, and when the logs gets over a specific length, you need to measure the backside, otherwise the result will not be good enough. So it is actually quite important to remember to have this backside measurements of the stacks.
You've been traveling a lot. We've been trying to connect on this podcast, and I know as I watch, I'm like, oh, it's like, the HD logging team, they're out somewhere in Idaho, somewhere, and then the next thing I know, you're somewhere else. And that's why before we did the podcast, I was like, man, where are you? And you're like, Denmark. At least you're home, because I know you haven't been home for a while. Maybe share with the listeners what the feedback from the forestry industry in Europe and I believe North America, you've been out over here. What's been the response so far from people with boots on the ground?
Well, of course, we've met some people saying, is this something for us? We would do that anywhere. We would meet them. But honestly, I can say everyone just loved this technology. When we show it to people, when we let them measure a stack themselves, you often see like kids when they get a new game or something, they're just smiling. And when you see grown-up people standing there measuring and deleting some logs that were caught wrong, they're just actually smiling, because this is so easy and it's so fun working with this. Because why ever use a measuring tape when you can just walk by a stack and film it like that? So the whole interface of it is actually quite good also. We don't have to be we can honestly say that it's actually quite good, but it's easy for people to use, and when they see the result that is right, it was the same result that they measured the stack 5 minutes earlier, everyone gets convinced that okay, this is the future in technology. We have to do measurements like this. It's just easier and it's transparent for everyone. So I'll say, no matter where I've been traveling, from the eastern part of Latvia and Lithuania all the way to the western part of the US, people are like nodding when we are discussing the technology and saying, okay, this is the future for at least this problem or this work in forestry of measuring stacks. This is the future technology.
Yeah, and I suspect then the comments come of Jens, it's like, can I do a free pilot or some type of thing where you're like, it works, people, we just showed you, and try it. And so that's part of the role. So maybe for our listeners thinking about the software, is there a price point that you can share? Or is the answer it depends? Because I know there's also there's a back end piece that I'd like to talk about. But just for our listeners, in terms of order of magnitude, is there a sense of price that you're able to share with the listeners?
Well, yeah, basically I could share it, but it would only make sense for the market, really. So the price for systems should be compared to whatever market we are operating in, and we can honestly just say for the European market, it's quite cheap, I would say. The system is made, it's working as is, so there's really no need of putting a lot of big investments into whatever we got right now. So if you will compare to what you save on it, we should probably charge 10 times the price on it, but it has to have like a low entry level to people to want to go into the system and buy something like this. But yeah, that's one pricing, and in Europe we're doing it normally as like a cubic meter price. So it only costs you the volume you have like turnover. So if you don't measure anything, you basically don't have any price of it. So, but of course the price will probably not be the same everywhere around the world, and will probably not even be the same type of price set. You can say we might even do like per measurement or per loose cubic meter or something else. So it's difficult to say like the real price, but I can only say people just give us a call, and I think they will find it interesting. That's all I can say.
Yeah, it's a great business model because again, on based on the cubic meter, right? It's usage based or
and it's also easier decision making for the customers, because the step in is not that steep. Like you can test it. It's not that expensive for you. You have to pay like €1,000, €1,500, or $2,000 or something. Then you're in. Then you can measure some certain volume, and if it doesn't live up to what you expected, you can just stop measuring, and then you're back out. So, and the good thing about technology like this is that if a customer in southern France or in Italy or in Lithuania somewhere decided to test it, it's no longer than a phone call away, and they went going down to the hardware store, picking up an iPad for less than $1,000, and they're on with it. They're out there measuring.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And the mills speak in cubic meters, so they can relate to that cost item there. So no, it makes sense. It's a beautiful model there. What can you tell us about the back end? Because I know it's collecting, and I think when I was doing my research, there's some cloud magic happening for our techie digital foresters. What can you share about the stack or technologies?
Yeah, we're based all is working on like an Asia database that we have our own. We've developed our own for this system. What it was actually developed for the LogStackPRO. We can use it as the same way in the LogStackLIDAR. This backend is where we make all the planning done. So if a forwarder he has forward out a stack of wood and he's finished, he can just pick up his phone, take a picture of it, and add in the details about it, the stack number, what species, how many underlay he put in, and all that. And when he upload that, the guy doing the measurement with the iPad, he will get the notification on it and see, oh, there's a new stack I can measure. And when the area is done, he will know, okay, now we have 10 unmeasured stacks in this area, and I'll go out there. And then he will see that all that is being transferred from a random mobile device to our backend and down to that unit used for measurement. And when all the measurements are done, everything is of course uploaded to the backend again.
Very cool.
From there, the user can access the information, what measurement reports, and get the statistics and how much they measured and all of that. And of course, everything can be securely, you can say, divided into their own system. If they have like ERP system or something like that, where they use for selling the wood, we have like a API connection. So that's a good thing about data like this, that you can send it anywhere. So we're not in this to be like the leading in logistic programs and all of that. We just want to make a good SharePoint where everyone can access their own data and put it into their own system. Because we see in forestry that there's like hundreds of different companies making logistics systems and stuff like that, and we don't want to compete in that. We just want to make a good measurement system.
Well, that's great. Focus. It's almost 101 in entrepreneurship and business. So thanks for sharing that openly, more about the technology and what it's doing. It sounds amazing. It's a beautiful application, as I said, from first download on my iPad Pro. Beautiful UI, and I'm sure the UX is going to be amazing. And I always like to have my kids test it first, because if the kid can figure it out, it's like a forester is going to get it as well. I'm
exactly
poked or shot by foresters listening, or they're all giggling, laughing. It's got to be easy. So at this point, I'm curious to get your input on a couple of different views and on the future. So with this podcast, I always get people to project out what the world could look like and what would get them excited. So on one end, I picture a Boston Dynamic robot dog with an iPad Pro with your software running, just running down, the login road and just scanning the stacks, and then there's a cell connect, a Starlink somewhere, and boom, the data's up, and then the client's like, yeah, it's fantastic, accurate, objective measurements. On the whole robotics side of this thing, do you see that as something that you get excited about, or do you think it's too early?
I basically think that is the future at some point. I'm not sure that I will see it in my career like being implemented fully, but we'll definitely see a lot more of it. We already seen like automated planting machines in Sweden and automated harvesters. And if they got to making a harvester automated, of course we can make everything automated in that. We've discussed it a lot. Why don't we just make a drone? We just fly out, measure the stack, and back in again. And basically, it's possible until like reality hits, because sometimes they put the deck or the stack inside the forest underneath branches. It's like it's not really an environmental for a drone. And there's all this quality part that we will never lose that in forestry, as well as I'm concerned. I'm probably also damaged from my time as a purchaser, because the quality of the logs that we're buying is also important, and that takes some skilled eyes. You'd like to look into a stack. Oh, there's a little bit of rot in there. I know this guy, he'll normally do a good job. This is a good stack and stuff like that. All that will be difficult in a stack to find that information. That takes a lot of experience, a lot of looking into the stack and looking how it's stacked to see really how is the quality of this. I'll probably eat my own words in like 10 years. We'll just fly out there, do like a 3D scan with some, I don't know, technology where we can look directly into it and learn all that's done, all the mistakes are. We even see like mills adding CT scanners on the entry of the mills. So they know everything about each piece of log that's running into the factory. So I think we can have an idea of how the development will go, but I don't think we have any idea where we would end up in even 15 years in this.
Well,
but for that, I do still think that measurements will be done like this, at least for some years. But there's a lot of holding back because people want to have control of their own wood and the measurements. So some will hold it back for many years. But I do see that industry measuring some of the logs, some of the volume themselves will probably be an ending point at some point.
But, well, it's fascinating points, because one, I think you're touching on the complexity of forestry that often people don't appreciate, and especially in, let's say, in an AI machine learning scenario. Well, guess what? I'm pretty sure it snows in Denmark just as it snows in Canada, and seasonality can change things. But I think the also great point you mentioned is that quality component, is that we're not getting rid of foresters. You still need the forester's subject matter expertise, and that's never going to go away. And so fantastic 2 points. You're probably sensing where my next question is going to go, because lately it's all about Chat GPT. Now it's even about Auto GPT. You hear words like chaos GPT and the need for regulation. You're obviously using machine learning, which is a subset of AI, and deep learning is a further subset of that space. What do you guys see? Like, or maybe is this a question for your crazy skilled developer with crazy ideas? But what do you guys talk about inside? Because you were doing machine learning from obviously several years, and now it's kind of like I call it craziness, to be honest with you. But what's your view on this whole AI stuff and what it means for us foresters?
I really think it's hard to say for forester isolated what it would make a difference for us. But I think for people in the entire world, everything will be different in just 5 years. We won't even imagine what will happen. And I think foresters will probably see some of it coming. Some of it they won't even recognize. They'll just use all the system, use their phone as they've done for many years. And all this technology will just be implemented everywhere. We won't even know it's being implemented. It will make our life easier, but at some point we will also say, was this really what we wanted? I see that a lot of industries have the room to add all this technology, and forestry has a big chance of developing as well. There is though some parts of forestry standing a little bit back because we are working with natural resource, and it is natural and it's organic, and we can't really control everything happening. So there will be probably for some a safe space still in forestry where you can actually, if you don't want to work with AR, you can actually probably go AI, you can probably go around it and work the rest of your life without it really having a big influence on you. So I think there will be for some a safe place in forestry. But from my side, we'll do what we can to implement it because it's great technology, at least with the right use it is. So
for sure.
Yeah.
And so along those points, how many megapixels is too many? How many LiDAR density is too many? Because Apple's going to keep making these iPad Pro, right? And going, but at what point is it good enough? Would you say we're already good enough with LogStackLIDAR, or is more better? We need, more megapixels. Heck, put 2 LiDARs on them at multi-wavelength, and put the stereo cameras on the iPad. What are your thoughts on that? Are we at the point where good is good enough?
Yeah, I think we're at like a point of like push and drag, because when working with it, we want to have the best resolution. We want to get as close to the stack as possible, most LiDAR data as possible. But at the end of the day, people want to stand out in the forest. They want to finish the report and send it online. And they're like, oh, it can't be too big because it takes too much time, because the 5G network is not even good enough. So the technology and the possibilities are huge with this. But we are really, every day we're like scaling it down because it's not possible, because the infrastructure is not ready for everything that we can do. We can do a lot of work out on the system, but we have to like cut down the resolution every time before sending it, because it's not possible sending a 2 gig file up to a backend, because people are saying we can't even email this. They have to be smaller, because it always hit like the working use of each system. So even as smart as it can't get too smart, because we have to like keep it down at some point, at least for that area. But I think Apple will continue, and I do hope, of course, they will continue with the LiDAR system. I don't see a reason why not. But as you saw, just the step from the 13 Pro to the 14 Pro, going from 12 megapixels to, I guess, 48 or something, it's insane. All the information that they put into each pixel now, it's incredible.
For sure. So let's say Android rolls out a tablet with a LiDAR or LiDAR sensor. I don't know if they are. I'm in the Apple ecosystem. They sucked me in. Kids started watching movies and buying all sorts of stuff. So I'm stuck in that ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But what if Android releases something where you're going to support it, or it's simply a matter of who's got the right components in the tablet?
Yeah, basically, I can say, if the amplitude of it will be big enough, yes, of course. If there will be enough units with the good enough hardware in it, we will of course support it. But right now, the only one we see delivering a system that's good enough is Apple. They actually didn't make the hardware themselves. They bought it from an Android delivering system, but that's how it is. But at least they got the best hardware. So until we see that development into the Android system, where they like continuously are making good enough system, we'll probably stay in Apple's ecosystem on this. Of course, we won't let a market run away if there's a good LiDAR technology in the Android. But let's see what happens the next couple of years in that.
For sure. Well, it's something to be said about Apple's chipsets. They're incredibly high performing.
Incredible.
Not good use of power as well, but that's a whole different engineering conversation. So the last question I'm going to ask you in terms of looking forward, I'm going to stretch your mindset maybe, or ask you to stretch your mindset. Take me out 20 years. What do you think the world of forestry looks like then? Or are there any certain technologies that you're kind of watching, or you've joked around internally with Lars and the developer and stuff? Is there something that gets you excited, really excited about the future?
I think it'll depend a lot of where in the world you are, of course, but I do think we will see, at least in some areas, a bigger dividing of the use of land. Is it for ecosystems and biodiversity mainly, or will it be for production? I think we will see a bigger split in that, and the land used for production is often a little bit more flat, a little bit more. There's not a big change in it. So everything that can be automized will be easier in the production farms. In Denmark, we've a lot of years seen that it's being like mixed in together, and I do think that the forest can actually do that, be productive and also have the ecosystems. But I don't see the development in what people want. Is that they want to use wood furnitures, but they don't want to see tree cut down. So I think we'll see a bigger dividing of more production areas and more areas for ecosystems. And when we do have that more focus on production in some areas, there's also the possibility to make the technology even more in use. So as mentioned, the automotive harvesters, I think in some years, the biggest percentage, the biggest part of all that is harvested is done automotive. Why have another person sitting on that? It's a dangerous job. Why not just have a machine doing it? I think the possibilities for automative systems in forestry is amazing. It is.
Yeah, for sure. Anywhere from trucking to harvesting, and I know I used to joke where people would ask me, "Are you worried about autonomous cars or vehicles?" And I'd shake my head and say, "No, I'm worried about the autonomous harvesters or the feller bunchers, because they have a big
exactly.
That's the one I'm worried about, not the car. I have a good probability I could survive the car that hits me, but that other one, I don't think so. But so hey, Jens, I really enjoyed the conversation. I enjoyed meeting you. You and I have not met before, so I always love these cold intros right into the podcast.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and chatting in person and learning more about each other. So for folks who are interested in following up and learning more, the app is available through the App Store, the Apple App Store, so they can download that. There's some account creation stuff that I know you have to do, and there's a demo mode,
exactly,
all that. But for folks who might want to say, hey, I'm ready to buy, I'm ready to place my order, I got X number of cubic meters, let's go. What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Basically, I always find our webpage, because that's where we have all the information, both for me and for the sales guys, wherever it will be relevant for them. So HedeLogSystems.com, that will probably be the easiest way to find us. Otherwise, just go to our LinkedIn page and you can search the same HedeLogSystems. And that will also lead you into our webpage, where you can find all information needed about the product and about how to find the local salesman for the system. So that is probably the best I can say, and feel free to reach out for me. I also like to hear a lot about the different problems people have with measurements. We know systems like this, it's not like a one suit size fits all. So we do have to make like small changes for each market or each customers. So don't be frustrated if the system is not like perfectly suited for you. We can help you with that and make it work for the local rules and stuff like that. So reach out for us and we can definitely make something good out of it.
Awesome. So there you go, folks. If you need to reach Jens, HedeLogSystems.com, don't be afraid of needing some tweaks. After all, their developer built this, by the sounds of it, pretty quickly. So I'm sure any help you need, the HedeLogSystems team can help you out. So Jens, awesome meeting you again. Appreciate you making some time to talk with me. I learned so much. I'm going to go out into my park here and give the app a test. And so wishing you all the best. I look forward to meeting you in person one of these days.
You too. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much. Bye for now.